What's up guys, Eve Business Insider back with you again, and today we're in J125, beautiful backdrop. This is one of my favorite systems to be in of all of Eve. It's a class 2 static high-sec wormhole. If you know anything about wormholes, then you probably realize right away this is a great wormhole for planetary interaction and not too much else. So stay tuned to the end of the video where we're going to discuss how you can get in here to maximize your planetary interaction as well, because we're going to open it up to the general public. So let's jump right in. This piece of machinery here is of great importance to us. This is how we're going to make all of our ISK right here. Now, this is the main key difference between doing PI in a wormhole or in null sec versus doing PI in high sec or low sec. And that's that I actually own this piece of machinery unless one of you comes and blows it up and puts your own down. I control the taxation level on this. Now we're going to get into, in some pretty good detail a little bit later in the video why that's going to make a difference, but before we do, I suppose we should get into some basics. Alright, so PI works best with a routine but short daily maintenance cycle to maximize your efficiency. It has a low entrance skill requirement of about a week's worth of training to get started, and the skill cap for this activity is about 3 million SP. Now, it's worth mentioning there are remarkably few parts of the game that cap anywhere near 3 million SP, never mind those that can net you with a little luck around 1 billion per month just in this category alone. So no doubt this is going to be worth taking a look to add to your portfolio. Skills you're going to need to get started are in order of importance as follows. Number 1, most important, is command center upgrades, and this skill is going to control exactly how much infrastructure we can build per planet. Number 2, most important, is interplanetary consolidation, which is going to allow us to open up more and more planets simultaneously, up to a limit of 6. And then third most important is planetology, which is going to give us more accurate resource scans when we go to actually deploy, and that's going to become increasingly important as the situation develops. So there's secondary skills for a couple of these. Planetology has a secondary skill that further improves those resource scans, and there's a couple other skills as well that deal with range and your ability to micromanage. So it's worth taking a look at those, but for the most part we're going to focus on these key 3 skills. So what you want to do is have these to a level of 4 or greater before you really are going to start to see any serious profit, especially in high sec or low sec, for those reasons that we got into. Alright, so if you've never looked into PI before and this is your very first tutorial, then I'm going to break it down for you right now. Here's the basics. Number 1, we have 8 different types of planets. Number 2, we have 15 different base materials spread amongst those planets in varying configurations. Number 3, those planets each have 5 materials on them, so if you're really good at math you can figure out some planets are going to share materials and some probably won't. And number 4, these materials are going to get processed in paired configuration all the way up a tree called a commodity tree, and eventually be built into final stage products such as player-owned star bases, pieces for T2 production, nanite repair paste, and a whole bunch of other really high demand items. So this is what's going to fuel the demand for what we're pulling off the surfaces of the planets, and that's really all you need to know for now. Alright, so for infrastructure we have 4 key groups of pieces. Number 1 is a command center, and this is going to be your forward operating base for your planetary colony. And as we got into before, there's a skill that associates with how many levels you can upgrade this piece of machinery. That's going to allow you to put up more and more subsequent infrastructure around it and deal with more resource or process it quicker, or however you want to look at it. Second category is extractors and extraction heads, and this is exactly what it sounds like. It's the bit that goes into the ground and pulls the resource from the planet. Third piece of this infrastructure is called a processor or factory, and this is going to be linked to our extraction heads and other pieces as well, and it's going to actually turn these materials in paired configuration as we mentioned further up the tree. The fourth category is storage and spaceports. Now basically each planet is equipped with its own planetary launch vehicles that allows you to put a very small amount of M3 into orbit and collect it as a jet can. But there's a cost associated with it, and there's also a cooldown associated with it. So in general, it's regarded as a much more inefficient way to make money with planetary interaction. However, there's an alternative. This sucker that we looked at before, the Planetary Customs Office, or Player-Owned Customs Office, is an alternative to that. And so what we're going to do today is be building spaceports, and that's going to allow us a much more efficient form of transit to get our materials off of the planet's surface. There's going to be no restriction for meters cubed. Well, there will be a little bit, but not nearly as much, and for our purposes today there'll be no taxation on that as well. However, it could be different depending on your situation, but the important thing to note there is that customs office equals high efficiency. If you don't have the customs office, you're going to be severely limited in what you can do in terms of profit output. So That's all we need to know for now. Okay, let's start our first colony. So what I'm going to show you right now is how to make a coolant production line on a gas planet. What you're going to need is a gas command center. Now I'm in the wormhole right now, so I can't show you what the market looks like on these, but they're about 100,000 each, and they're, I think, 1,000 meters cubed, so they're pretty easy to carry. So go ahead and grab at least one of those right away, and then follow me over to your planetary location. Okay, and the only thing you have to do to get started is be undocked and have the appropriate command center located in your cargo at the time of undock. So I'm floating in my beautiful player-owned starbase here, but it really doesn't matter where you are. If you're in high sec, that's just fine as well. So the first thing you want to do is go over to your gas planet and go ahead and view that in planet mode. You can right click on it to do that as well. And here's the planet surface. So right off the bat, if we click on the scan tab, we can take a look at the resource allocation of each of the different types of materials. So I already said we're going to be doing a coolant production line today, and I picked a gas planet because I feel they're really easy to illustrate the differences in the resource distribution on, and I know how to make a pretty good setup. So the two materials that we are going to need for this are aqueous liquids and ionic solutions. So right off the bat we can see our aqueous liquids are located in two bands around this planet. And of course they range from, you know, dark blue up to dark red and then eventually white in the density of the resource. And our ionic solutions are a little bit more dense and located just a little bit further up. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Basically, we want to deploy our infrastructure close enough to each of these bands that we can manufacture what we need to manufacture without having to move around too much. So once you find a spot that's pretty good, I figure I'm probably going to put down there, then we can get ready and put down our command center. So once you have your spot picked out, go back over to the build tab here, click on your command center option. You should see this gas command center. As long as you have it in your cargo hold, you're going to see it. So give that a click, mouse wheel for scrolling, and we're going to zoom in here and just place it anywhere along the edge of this band. I'll just pick there and then go ahead and hit submit. And now that is down. So there is our forward operating base. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to upgrade it. Now, like we talked about before, the upgrades are determined by the level of the skill that you possess. I've got level 5 of the skill, but for today's lesson I'm going to just push that to level 4 upgrade, and you can see it's going to considerably increase our power grid and CPU output. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and placed 2 extraction control units. It's a pretty simple click and drag operation. We put one up above a command center and one down below it, both very close to it. We'll get into why in just a minute. But next we are going to set these up to process. So give a click to the top one, click down here for survey for deposits, and now we've popped open this surveying program dialog window. So we're going to need to re-specify what type of material we want it to pull, and we're going to have to specify a number of heads to use. So I'm going to pick 4 because I don't know exactly what my resource distribution is going to look like quite yet on the command center. And the next thing we need to do is just drag these up into the higher density area. And as you can see, this is changing the amount of material that we're going to pull per cycle. And then the last thing we're going to need to do is change the extraction area size. And as we're changing this, you can see the duration of the total program that's going to run. And so we want it to be up above 1 day. Not by too much. We'll go for about a day even, in fact. And then as we made those larger, you can see these heads actually grew a little bit as well. So they grow in ratio to the duration of the program. And what we want to do is just drag those apart until there's a little bit of space in between them, and we no longer have these red numbers on the left showing us that we are overlapping. And then you can go ahead and hit install program, and that is going to start sucking material off of the planet. Okay, so I've completed that process for the second extraction control unit, and it's important to remember that we will need to hit submit in between every major revision to see these actually go live and into action. So now if we click on one of these, we can see that it's a few seconds into its current cycle. It is ticking down, and this cycle is going to produce about 11,000 units of our raw material. So the next thing we're going to need is a place to put that raw material. And today it's going to be going on a storage facility. So first I'm going to show you the old, more traditional way of planetary launches, and then I'll show you the benefits of the customs office spaceport way of doing things. So the way we're going to work this is we're going to have 2 actually storage facilities, one for each type of base material, and this is going to help as an overflow basin. So if we set these for longer than a day, they'll continue to fill up and we won't have to worry too much about them, you know, running dry on material. So the next thing we're going to have to do is link these together. So hold Control, click on the first item you want to link, go ahead and drag it to the next one. Whoops, not holding Control for the second click, and that'll create a link. Repeat that process over there, and we've got a second link. Now if we hit Submit to solidify these, we should see by coming back into the extraction control unit, click on Products, we're going to see an item for the ionic solutions that haven't actually been created yet, but that's okay. We're going to click Create Route, and now mouse over to the spot that we want to put it, which is this storage facility, and we're now going to be able to create a route there. And what that has done is basically gone ahead and said, for all the material that I collect through these extraction heads, go ahead and pass it directly to the storage facility. So I'm going to repeat the process on this other one. And what we've just done is created an automated program that's going to send these materials into these two storage facilities. Go ahead and hit Submit, and away we go. Next thing we're going to need is a third storage facility. And I'm going to go ahead and place that one up above the first two, right about there. And this one is going to be linked to each of these storage facilities as well. So one thing that we can do, if you saw there, is I've passed through a link from this one into the first storage facility and from that one back into the second one. What that will allow me to do if I need to is, shift materials anywhere throughout here. So they don't have to be directly connected. I don't have to jump from A to C. I can go A to B to C, and then they're going to reuse these production lines right there. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is begin to assemble our processor or factory lines themselves. So what we're going to need is a combination of industry facilities. We're going to place basic facilities first. We're going to place them double wide on the other side here, and then we're going to put a second row of them down below. What these are going to do is process our first stage materials into second stage refined materials. And then after that, what we're going to need is a set of 2 advanced industry facilities. We'll place those right below. So what we're going to need to do now is link them all together. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and leapfrog the rear ones onto the front ones. And then I'm going to have each of these front ones go ahead and connect to this command center. Hopefully that works out for links in the end. I think it should be just fine, and this command center needs to be linked into one of these as well. So what we've created is a pattern that will allow these to shift all the way up into this top spaceport or storage facility if we need them to. So we're going to go ahead and hit Submit, and that'll solidify them. The next thing we need to do is pick a schematic for each of them. Now, for our coolant lines, we've already said we're going to need aqueous liquids and ionic solutions, which are going to turn into water and electrolytes, respectively. So what we need to do is set a schematic for each of the water and electrolytes. So we'll go through here, click Schematic, scroll down the list until we find electrolytes, there it is, and hit Install. And we'll do that for this second one as well. Electrolytes, install. For the next two, we're going to do the same thing but for water. Way down there at the bottom of the list, install, and again, and install. And for these last two, what we're going to want to do, because these are the advanced ones, we have a different list of schematics that they can process, is our coolant. So click on that, coolant, install, same thing over here. So what we've just done is pre-configured these for what each of them are going to manufacture. And the next thing that we will have to do is tell them all where to go. So for our base materials, we're not going to be able to route them into these structures until we actually have a little bit of material, but what we can do is deal with the outflow routing. So go back into Products, click on our electrolytes for the first one, create route, and we want to put it up to this number 3 storage facility. I'll show you why in a minute. And we're going to repeat this process for each of these base materials, routing them back up into that storage facility. And again, water going up, create route. So you can see there's a few clicks here, but this is a one-time thing. You won't have to do this every time. Oops, Products, water, route, up there. And same thing for these as well. Products, coolant, we're going to create the route back up into there. So what these are basically going to do is send all of their intermediate stage or final stage commodities right back up to this top storage facility. Okay, so we waited long enough to see just a little bit of material show up into each of these primary storage facilities, and if we go into products here, we can see that there is about 11,500 units there. So what we're going to do is route these up to the appropriate basic facilities. And so the top two are the ones for ionic solutions. So once again, we'll go back into storage, create route, click on this top one, and then back into storage again, create route a second time, and back into this one. So you can see the color of these orange rings. I don't know if it's going to show on YouTube, but they do change a little bit to illustrate that you have made some kind of modification. And then to the other storage facility, same thing but opposite for the aqueous liquids, into the second set of those basic industry facilities. Create a route to each of those and hit submit. And now what we're going to need to do is just wait for these to complete their cycle and output a little bit of material into here before we can proceed. Okay, so we waited for that cycle to finish now, and as you can see in here, we do have at least 40 times 2 of each of these two types of beginning stage materials, electrolytes and water. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create route on the electrolytes to the number 1 advanced industry facility, and a second time to the number 2. And then we're going to go ahead and repeat the procedure for the water, linking these to both of them. And when we start this process up, what we're going to find is that we're completely configured and ready to go. So now all we need to do is wait for a few cycles until we have some coolant, and I'll show you how to maintain this planetary colony. Okay, and to maintain this colony, all you need to do is just a couple super simple steps. First, you're going to have to come over here to the extractor control unit, which will be indicating to you that it is completed, and you'll have to hit survey for deposits, and you'll restart the program with a button right there. And you'll have to do these for each of your extractor control units. Whoops. Each of your extractor control units. But other than that, you're pretty much good to go. And when you have a sufficient amount of coolant, see I only have about 90 meters cubed so far, but this is how you would go for launch. What you want to do is click on your third storage facility there, go for expedited transfer. Now we want to send this over to the command center, so give that a click. And click here and hit add or drag it over, and then execute transfer. And what that's done is move the material that was in that storage facility over here into the command center, which is the basis for our launch. So you want to hit this second button here for launch, click on your coolant, hit add, and it's going to show you your cost. Now this is, for me, it's about 20% of the total value of the material, so we're definitely losing some money here. And in the next episode, we're going to look at how to use spaceports to maximize your efficiency without going for this planetary launch. But all we need to do is send that up into space, and we're done here. You're gonna have to do that probably once every couple of days. This can handle 500 M3 per launch, so I think that's about a day and a half or so. And to find it again, go into your journal, into the planetary launches tab here, and then this is going to give you a bookmark directly to the planetary vehicle that's waiting for you with your loot. So until next time, guys, tune back in. We'll do a multi-planet show, and I'll show you how to really optimize your planetary colonies with the use of spaceports. Thanks for watching.